Football is a game that evokes a lot of passion, and while there are players who are loved for their fair play, dedication and humility, there are others who are outrightly hated for their antics on and off the pitch. That being said, these are 5 of the most hated footballers in the world. Number 5. Now you'd be shocked to hear that Eden Hazard is one of the most despised players on the planet. Yeah, don't let the handsome face and cheerful celebrations fool you. This man has more than enough enemies behind the scenes. We got a first glimpse of how awful he could be in 2013, when he kicked a ball boy just to get the ball off him. I mean, it doesn't get much worse than assaulting a kid, does it? Off the pitch, the ex-Belgian international has been said to have an ego bigger than the moon itself. So much that some of his own teammates don't like talking to him. Hazard also has this huge sense of entitlement, which causes him to nag anytime he doesn't get what he wants. Sure, he's an awesome player, but even with all that talent, no one wants to put up with such a crybaby. Now, when Hazard isn't kicking ball boys and complaining like a spoilt brat, he's busy thinking he's the player every club wants, and he proved this just before he signed with Chelsea in 2012. Still a Lille player at the time, Hazard was a hot commodity who'd been tipped to be the next big thing in Europe. This is when he made a video of himself holding cards with the names of different football teams on them. The idea was for him to make facial expressions to indicate which clubs he wouldn't mind transferring to, and the ones he would never play for. Of course, this upset the fans of the clubs he made horrible faces for, and that only meant more enemies for the ex-Real Madrid man. Speaking of Madrid, you can bet they'd like to forget they ever signed such a player. Did you know that after paying Chelsea the big bucks for his signature, Hazard arrived at the Spanish capital faster than he was? His form was terrible too, as he only scored a disappointing 7 goals in as many as 4 seasons. He was also being paid higher than the likes of Sergio Ramos, Luka Modric and Toni Kroos, guys who actually put in the work. The fans hated him and the Spanish media even called him a joke. But that wasn't going to stop Hazard from pissing them off one last time. He did so by stating in an interview that he would return to Chelsea after his time at Madrid was over. For crying out loud, what made him think Chelsea even wanted him back to begin with? Secondly, didn't anyone tell him that such comments would infuriate the Madrid fans? Well, it did, and in 2023, Hazard's contract was terminated and he has since retired from professional football. Speaking of annoying the fans, one man that's an expert at doing this is Ashley Young. In fact, a lot of EPL fans have joked that the winger only moved to Inter Milan in 2020 to escape all the hate he was receiving in England. But why was Ashley hated so much? The answer is simple. He was a cheapskate player who just couldn't stay on his feet. Ashley Young's reputation for diving was legendary. How else do you explain a single player winning as many as 11 penalties in 200 EPL matches? Even his former manager at Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson, admitted in 2012 that a particular penalty-winning dive by Young was too dramatic. But Ferguson wasn't the only coach to take note of Young's cheating techniques. Another former coach of his, David Moyes, also told Young to go easy on the diving. As for the media, fans, players and coaches of opposition teams, they weren't gentle with the kind of words they used to describe Ashley Young's shenanigans. They labelled him a diver, a cheat and a liar. He's also been bashed severely for failing to understand what fair play means in football. After his spell at Inter Milan was over, Young returned to the Premier League in 2021 to play for Aston Villa. At this time, age had caught up with him, so he couldn't play the attacking role anymore. He had been deployed to the right-back position, and of course, this meant less time for him in the penalty area, much to the delight of defenders all across England. Number 3. Now there are players who are hated by the fans, the media, and even their own teammates. But do you know any player that's hated by an entire continent? Well, I do, and his name is Suarez. The man who cheated Ghana and Africa out of making it to a World Cup semi-final for the first time in the history of the competition. It was the 2010 World Cup, which was hosted in South Africa, and everyone had called it Africa's Year, being that it was the first time the competition was held on the continent. Now with South Africa and all the other African nations knocked out, Ghana remained the continent's only representative in the tournament. They did well too, as they scaled the group stages and dispatched the USA in the first knockout round to reach the quarterfinals. The Ghanaians knew the battle was going to be tough, as they were pitted against Uruguay, who boasted of 2 deadly strikers in the form of Luis Suarez and Diego Forlan. But with the whole continent cheering them on, they managed to frustrate the Uruguayans and keep the game tight, up until the dying minutes. That was when Ghana had a last-second shot on goal, which was certainly going in. But guess who was there to knock the ball away with his hands? Luis Suarez. He got a red card for handling the ball in the area, and Ghana were awarded a penalty. Unfortunately, Asamoah Gyan fired wide, and seeing Suarez celebrate the penalty miss so widely left a very bitter taste in the mouths of the Africans. The only thing more painful was hearing the referee blow the full-time whistle immediately after the miss. Yes, Ghana were one kick away from making history, and they would have done it if not for Luis Suarez's blatant cheating. Now, it isn't just the Africans that hate Suarez, because I'm sure Giorgio Chiellini and Branislav Ivanovic didn't enjoy getting bit by the Uruguayan vampire either. But cheating and biting aside, Suarez was also hated by his teammates for being too selfish with the ball, and hated by opposition defenders for constantly diving, just to name a few. Number 2. Speaking of diving, there's no player in the world that does it better than Cristiano Ronaldo. While at Manchester United, the quick-footed winger used to buy penalties by doing step-overs, which were usually followed by a 10 out of 10 dive in the penalty box. And just because he was so fast, most refs couldn't detect the con. But the defenders knew they were innocent, and they despised Ronaldo for his unfair tactics. To rub salt into the wound, Ronaldo would even talk back at them after they accused him of the cowardly act. But that's not where it stops, as he would go on to score the penalty and do his trademark celebration for all to see, including those he had robbed. CR7 was so good at diving in the box and winning penalties that the media gave him the nickname Penaldo. Now, Ronaldo wasn't hated for his cheating alone. His boy band looks were kind of annoying too. Sure, he's a good-looking chap, but what's with all the hair gel? Moving on, and the 5-time Ballon d'Or winner would go on to annoy an entire football club when he went on Piers Morgan to blast Manchester United, their coach Erik ten Hag, and a few of his teammates at Old Trafford. United terminated his contract immediately, removed his mural from their stadium, and in the club's eyes, he is an ungrateful, spoiled, disrespectful brat. Number 1. Now, if we're going to talk about hated brats in football, there's no way in Jupiter we're leaving Neymar Jr out of the conversation. For real, how many players can you say are hated in 3 different teams? Neymar, he's a villain at Barcelona, at PSG, and even in the Brazilian national team. While at Barca, he always complained about being under Messi's shadow, and he made it clear that he wanted the limelight for himself. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but the manner with which Neymar presented his case was downright disrespectful to the Camp Nou faithful. He eventually made the big money move to PSG, who were hoping that his talents would win them the UEFA Champions League for the first time in their history. But after several inconsistencies and faked injuries, Neymar could not justify the huge salary he was being paid in Paris. The PSG fans absolutely hated Neymar for pretending to be injured anytime he felt like going on a holiday. They also made fun of him for his love for burgers and other junk food. As for opposition defenders, they never liked his dives or simulations, nor did the referees enjoy his constant clashes with other players on the pitch. Now, if you can think of any player who's hated more than Neymar, then be my guest in the comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next one.